growing weary of running from room to room, practicing one-tooth insurance-driven dentistry? Then stay tuned for the latest episode of The Lionhearted, where Dr. Stephen Rasner will hand you the blueprint for what many call the gold standard of general practice dentistry.
Hi everyone, you are tuned into The Lionhearted with your host, Dr. Steve Rasner. Tonight's subject is going to be a subject that you hear me rant about all the time, but don't turn it off, because it's the first time I've ever thought about a plan, and this plan could take some years, but you have to have one, to get you out of insurance, to be a fee-for-service practice, or at least be significantly free of insurance. You simply can't continue to say, well, that's the way it is. So that's going to be our subject. I want to say hi to a couple of our new followers in Chile, India, and South Korea. I mean, I love it. A lot of you have been emailing me lately, and you know I love that. So, you can reach me at my email. It's my name, Dr. Rasner, DrRasner @AOL. And this is one of my after work podcasts, which two things happen there. If my voice sounds a little weary, it's because it is. But I like to come to you after a day's work because that's what I do. I work full time, just like you do, which is why, even at 65, which it might ask, well, why? Why do I do? Why? If I've done so well over the years, then why am I still doing this? I'll tell you why. Because if you took this away from me, I'm not sure what else I would be about. I mean, I play tennis, I work out. That's not enough. I'm not telling you that it's amazing every single day, 365 days a year. But most of those days, it's a symphony what I've been able to put together, which I'm trying to get you to put together. I mean, why would it remotely be the case that me, of all people, Steve Rasner, is the only one that can establish a dental practice that's able to function the way you hear me talk about, meaning pretty much on automatic pilot most of the time. And I get to weekly, today, with Monday, mid to late January. I started my day with a connective tissue graft on number 11. 2 hours, patient was sedated. My back is still killing me from suturing. And I know, by the way, that's not even close to being one of the more lucrative procedures I do, or even stressless. It's none of those. But I keep it real with you because I need variety in my clinical challenges. And I'm pretty good at them. Sometimes I have amazing results I would be proud to share with others. And sometimes I have to go in for a second surgery. But that's how I started. I followed that up with an implant placed on number 30 for my European friends. I think that would be 4-6. It's a tooth I had extracted, 5 months ago and grafted, and I actually videoed that procedure for my lectures. And I think there was one anterior endo, a few crown and bridge cases. 2 or 3 of, 6, 7 patients today were sedated. And the point I'm telling you all this is you're never going to be able to duplicate what I have if you continue not to fight to free yourself from insurance. So that's what this is really going to be about tonight. What are the real steps? I don't think I have to convince any of you. It's 72% of us have stated in surveys that the number one concern is reimbursement from insurance companies. And I know, and you know, not only do they have the reimbursement problem of how little they want to pay you, as opposed to 30 years ago when I was practicing. It wasn't a problem at one point. You get it, right? That all the companies were pretty decent to us. It's only happened in the last 12 years, at least in my region. It's not only that, It's that there seems to be games being played that if you leave out certain things, the things I call dirty data, if you get a group number wrong, a birthday, social security, anything on that form, people there are trained not the appropriate narrative, so it gets downgraded to something else. And I don't know how my colleagues can justify, after what we did to become dentist, 4 years college, 4 years dental school, a couple years for sure, maybe 4 as associates and struggling out of the gate, and some of you would post-grad. And how can you justify, well, you'll see more patients to make up for, or you'll cut corners and use inexpensive labs. And even if that all worked, by the way, by doing it, using cheaper supply companies. I know a dentist in town that anytime anybody gets to 2 years with him or 3 years, he cuts them loose because he doesn't have to pay the rate that's going for somebody with that kind of experience. I don't deal with any of that. So let's give you a game plan. I want you to go to work tomorrow thinking how outraged you are by the fact that your career is being controlled by a pencil pusher that maybe used to be a practicing dentist, or I don't even know if they have to be dentist. He's deciding what you should get paid on services. Somebody in that department is trying to downgrade you. Somebody's trying to reject your form because of one of the things I called earlier about dirty data. The first thing you have to do, and listen, I get it. I remember. I know what happens to you. You get a big fat check on Mondays probably. The biggest check you get of the week, or checks. And it feels good because it sets you up, with maybe pulling a couple things out of hygiene for a good Monday. But it's not true because none of you, nor would I, take the time and scrutinize how ripped off you got on that big check that you received on Monday by participating in toxic plans that pay you 70 cents on what you used to be paid on $1. I want you to remember that. You got to remember the fight because it's too easy for you to just accept it. So the first thing you do is you have to meet for change. I'm telling you, I did this. I remember doing it, and it's painful to do it. We met every 2 weeks as an office. Not the entire office at every meeting, but certainly most of us. Because a lot of it impacted hygiene, and the clinicians needed to know. We had a spreadsheet on a 1 column vertically would be all the insurance companies you take. And then across the top horizontally would be all your major services. And really, if you want to do it right, you have to put I didn't do that. I put my major services from exams to a full set of x-rays, dentures, extractions, surgicals, root canals, anteriors, molars. You get the picture. So somebody has to set this up. And it could take you several meetings to decide and identify which of these plans that come in on Monday with payment are the ones you need to axe. I'm not here tonight telling you to terminate all insurances in the next 2 months. That would be a mistake. You need to know something. I'm just a guy talking to you. I don't think I'm anybody special a little bit. And I get emails from a lot of you. And I got them from people I helped 10, 20 years ago. I've never had anybody say to me that I was full of it and I only must work in South Jersey what I do. In fact, quite the opposite. Powerful, powerful testimony to vacations they were able to take for the first time, lack of stress, having enough cash flow to be ready for payroll every 2 weeks, more enjoyment of what you dedicated your life to. I mean, unless you can get out of this or want to get out, I don't even want to get out. I mean, it's really enjoyable what I do. I like to, a couple years from now, I'll start to cut maybe to 2 days or something like that. But, I've created something that is very valuable to me personally. And that's what I'm trying to get you to emulate at an age way younger than mine, because I did make a lot of mistakes. So first thing is, don't be embarrassed. If I got out of school today, I would absolutely be taking some insurances, if not all of them. But I'd be damned if I wouldn't start weaning them out, scrutinizing what you're actually getting paid. You have to be brave. Now, this ties in at the identical time to you separating your office from every office in your community. And this is going to take a couple years. This whole thing I'm telling you is going to take a couple years. But you have to create something so when that out-of-network patient telephones your office, that number one, you have a wrap down for that patient. So the first thing you need to jot down on your voicemail on your phone, if you're driving, is write Dr. Rasner at AOL.com and find out what the verbiage is, which is easy, for the out-of-network patient. Out of the significant money that we take in each year, at least 25% of it, if not 50% of it, are out-of-network patients. You understand, and I never try to pretend I'm an expert on insurance. You got Charles Blair and Tom Lamole, if they're still doing it. They are two good guys, by the way, that I leaned on for years when I was participating to know how to maximize my participation. But what I'm about to say is, as far as I know, every company near my region still pays the out-of-network patient money when they go out of network to come to me. They're just getting less. Right? You get us? I have heard through the grapevine that there's some companies trying to implement new rules. So if you are out of network and you go to an out-of-network doctor, that they won't pay you. Now, as far as I know, and I certainly know in my region of New Jersey, that's not the case. Or that would be a totally new challenge. You do know, don't you? Up till 1980 or thereabouts, there was no dental insurance. That people simply went to the dentist and a dentist told them what they needed and they found a way to pay for that. Whether it was a payment plan like my father used to do. He was a great dentist, but a good old Joe. So I remember seeing his little blue book on what patients owed him. This is way back, but there was a time when the mentality of the public that sought our care paid out of pocket, but that's long gone. I'm trying to get you. Would you be brave? Would you please be brave? Would you look yourself in the mirror and question why you wouldn't at least attempt to start making changes? And what I'm asking you to do is constantly meet every 2 weeks. You can't meet once a month because you'll never implement enough change. It'll take too long. And by the way, when do you meet? We tried everything, but I can tell you generally, your team wants to meet, certainly not after work, not on a day they're off, and they want to be paid for it, and they should be paid for it. So mine meetings were first thing in the morning or after the morning meeting, which meant I literally changed my schedule and lost production because that's how important this was for me. By the way, the year I did that, our practice went up 700,000. I'm not kidding. I'd never lie on audio or camera to inflate something. I've never done that with you. So it's important when I tell you that when I tell you it went up 700, it went up 700. I didn't keep doing it, is the truth. When things got fixed, I kind of backed off. So The two roads you have to take, actually there's three roads. One road is starting to meet and analyzing and scrutinizing your plans so that you know which ones you should begin eliminating. Okay. Number two, creating an office environment, which I've talked about in other podcasts, that's a relationship-based practice. And I'll elaborate that on a minute. So what I mean by that is, even when they call your office, and certainly when they come in, it's palpable. They can feel, this is different. And that includes a lot of things. And I'll come back to that one in a minute. But the third road is offering something clinically. Let's think about this for a minute. Offering something clinically that makes you unique from everybody else. That's what I want to attack right here. Let's take the third one first. What could you offer the quickest and the easiest that would make you different? And I've talked about it many times, and be quite honest with you, I don't even know if I've put it together with what I'm about to say to you before, but that would be an office that provided oral sedation. It's a permit. You can acquire it in a matter of months. And the best part about it is that there truly is no learning curve. You know, there's nothing else I could give you, and you know that. Not 6-month ortho, not implant dentistry, not root canal, that you can become predictably efficient anywhere near the skill of oral sedation. The skill of oral sedation is really a number of protocols that allow you to practice safely. Working on ASA 1 and 2 patients, not sedating children, not sedating anybody under, I don't know if I've ever sedated anybody under 18. You know, having monitors for all the patients that you do sedate. Using safe practice habits. I mean, it is a beautiful way to practice. And I don't charge for it. I want to make that clear. So remember, those of you that might be new tonight for any reason, my sedation protocol is triazolam 0.25, 50 milligrams of Atarax, 25 Benadryl, and nitrous oxide at the level I need it, which sometimes is 0. Those 3 pills have a different impact on each patient. Nothing to do with body weight, has to do with many factors. And so those 4 items are what I use, and I've never heard anybody give me a combination that was as good. And I just did a couple of podcasts on oral sedation, but that's the easiest one. Even if you don't use it the way I tell you to use it, which is the next skill that you need to acquire with that would be atraumatic extractions of any tooth in the mouth with the exception of wisdom teeth. I'm not a big fan of the GP doing wisdom teeth because there's not a good return on investment. And even though if you've done 1,000 of them under your belt, in my eyes, nobody can argue about the facial anatomy and the structures present in lower third molars that make potential morbidity of vascular problems and paresthesia problems very real. It's just not worth it to me. By the way, if you do refer to your oral surgeon, like I recommend you do for wisdom teeth, send them all 4. Do not be a you-know-what and take out the easy number 1 and 16, the maxillary, on your own and then send them low. He will not appreciate that. And you can do what I do in most communities and have a decent relationship with both your oral surgeon and your periodontist. So I would recommend that you do refer some things out. So I would recommend that you establish a blend between what you do and what you refer out. It's not good for you to isolate yourself and be Mr. Everything in your community. I am living proof, having done it now for 24 years, that you can do a ton of surgical procedures and still stay very busy and refer a ton of surgical procedures. But back to my point. Even if you didn't do that stuff, which I think you should, the oral sedation permit by itself for anything else you do, I think it's the most powerful aspect you could add to your practice. I absolutely do. And we don't charge because the pills cost $8. I'm sure the nitrous is every bit of $1,000 a month. It gets people in my door and it'll get people in your door. And it is one thing you can absolutely market the heck out of. So the first thing clinically you can do is that. Besides that, and this isn't going to sound sexy, but you have to make a lifetime commitment to being really good at all levels of basic dentistry. And again, I've told you many times on this podcast, I'm just one guy, but if you wrote to me and asked me for what we call the dream residency, it means 4 years or more of courses that I recommend that you take, because you can't take everything. And you'll see the Frank Spear Institute in Phoenix on there, which will keep you busy for 4 years, just taking 1 or 2 a year. You would see Dawson stuff on there, the Pete Dawson Legacy and Institute. You would see my stuff on there for those of you that do want to learn surgical extractions, atraumatic. I didn't mean to get into this, but if you do that, check Beth out at her email ASAP, because I'm not exaggerating. I just got done telling you, I don't exaggerate. We're sold out except for the fall. And that's going to come around faster than lickety-split. And these courses do fill up. So we have all kinds of options now. We have observer options for those of you that feel you're not ready to jump in yet, but you want to get closer and see what this is about. Now, in 2020, for the first time ever, we have 1-day options. So you're not committed to 2 days, but it's an amazing course. I'm right on the brink of hosting a new one, which I'm going to do in 3 weeks. In case you don't know about these courses, I screen them all. They are ASA 1s and 2s. We numb them for you because we don't want you sitting around an hour of each day, possibly, waiting for the third block to kick in. They're numbed when you walk in the room. So it's pretty exciting stuff. What I'm going to do is I'm going to break up this podcast into 2 parts. This one for tonight and one for next week. And I want to remind you, I think these are critically important concepts for you in 2020. If you don't move on it, it's your own fault. And there's really 3 roads. I know I've said, I'm going to say it again. The first road is meeting with your team to look at what it is you can do to start eliminating insurances. Well, if you're going to do that, then you have to create a business that makes it worth it to the people that leave their network to go to you and then recommend you to other people. And the number one thing that'll do that, without a doubt, is getting an oral sedation permit. If there was something else as easy, I would tell you to do it. The other thing that we're going to need to extrapolate on is, well, what else can you do in that office? Whether it's a 2-chair office or 7 chairs like mine, so that patients can feel the palpable difference. I mean, that's got to be a real thing, and we need to break that down. The third item would be clinically, what can you do and how can you do it? Naturally, this all falls apart if your crowns that you do look ugly, if they debond and come off constantly, if your root canals end up causing the patient to lose the tooth. Who are we kidding here? I mean, I know you just spent, God knows what you young grads spend, $250,000 and up for your dental school. But here, let me give you some sobering news. You just started. You're going to have to make a serious investment for many, many years. And the outcome of doing all this is a fee-for-service practice. That's what I have. In 2020, surrounded by Nobody else that does it. Not one office where I'm at in southern New Jersey is fee for service. And on top of that, I'm in an economically challenged area of the United States, like many of you. So be sure to write to me for any of the things I said to you. One thing I want to leave you with, which is important. While you're in insurances, you might need to hire somebody part-time for the next 6 months. I'll tell you why. To go over every single patient that comes in over the next 6 months to make sure their insurance data is clean. I did that when I had insurance carriers. That is critical to you getting paid on time. You know, I did a audit 7 years ago, and I get paid up front. And I found over $200,000 of uncollected, completed services on the street for various reasons, from they were terminated from insurance and nobody knew it, to multiple procedures that got kicked back, kicked down, kicked out so long that a year passed and we never were able to collect. I'm trying to save you guys time. Stick with it. Thanks for listening to me. It means a lot. I'm trying to give you real stuff, and I know you can tell by my eyes and my voice. Thanks for tuning in. See you next week.